What is really going on in Nigeria? Is this actually a Christian genocide? Who is funding and arming these militant Islamic groups? And are Muslims really converting to Christianity there? Today, we are talking to a missionary and the head of the organization Equipping the Persecuted. His name is Zhang, and he is going to tell us exactly what we need to know about Nigeria and what Christians here need to do. Mr. Zhang, thanks so much for taking the time to join us. Could you tell everyone who you are and what you do?
My name is Zhang. I'm the executive director and founder of equippingthepersecuted.org, and I'm also the founder of truthnigeria.com.
Okay, tell us a little bit about your testimony. How did you start doing what you do?
Well, my testimony is 2009, I had my wake-up call with God. Repented, came back to him. I grew up in a Christian home, but left the faith. And then I came back in 2009. And then my grandfather, who's a lay evangelist, he's a guy that shares the gospel everywhere. Still hands out gospel tracts. He's 90 years old, still hands out gospel tracts at Walmart's.
Wow.
Was working
That's
with
awesome.
a Nigerian, a missionary to Nigeria, and brought him back to speak about what was going on in Nigeria. And I just felt an immediate calling that the Lord laid it on my heart to go serve. To go to Nigeria. So in 2011, I went for my first time, and I kept on going back and serving every year. But as I kept on going back and serving, we saw the attacks against Christians increase. And I saw very few organizations or missionaries doing anything about it. And so that culminated to starting in 2019. I started Equipping the Persecuted, a mission dedicated to helping persecuted Christians in Nigeria.
Tell us what is actually going on there. There are a lot of conflicting reports, and we see the really difficult to watch videos, but give us a lay of the land.
What's happening right now is a real-life systematic jihad against Christians perpetrated by radical Islamists from the north. And over the course of the last 30 years, the population of the Fulani tribe has exploded, and they practice a very radical form of Islam. And as they have expanded, they've been able to take over and get more political power and take over more states. And these states become Sharia law states. And they're just working their way further south, which is more of a Christian population is what they're running into. And so as they go in, I call it conquering of a nation by 1,000 attacks. One little attack here, one little village here, one little attack here. It's not just one, giant offensive where they're just trying to, take over a whole country at once. It's just little by little over time. And
it's not just one big crusade. It's the death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah, death by 1,000 cuts. And that's what's happening in Nigeria right now.
Okay, tell us a little bit more about the Fulani tribe. You said that it's exploded in the past few years. Why is that? Do we know?
So they have moved in from the Sahel. They're not indigenous to Nigeria. They came in from Northern Africa, Chad, Niger, and they're working their way into other countries, but they focused on Nigeria in particular because they believe if that they can take Nigeria, then they can take over all of Africa.
Why is that?
Nigeria is the most populous country in Africa.
Oh, really?
And it's one of the most rich in natural resources. So if they can take over Nigeria, the rest of the country goes because there's no other country in Africa that matches the population of Nigeria.
Now, obviously, Islam is inherently about submission because that's what Islam means. And that's why the vast majority of designated terror groups around the world are Islamic. But not every Islamic group acts like this, going into villages and killing Christians in their churches. So what is it about this Fulani tribe that makes them so incredibly aggressive?
They practice a very radical form of Islam that originated in Saudi Arabia. It's the same form of Islam that Al-Qaeda and ISIS have, and it's a very dominant form of Islam where, if you disagree with what we believe in, they feel they have the right to kill you, even if it's fellow Muslims. If they're not hardcore as the Fulani are, they feel it is their duty by Allah to go kill these people and take their land.
Mm. And that kind of brings me to a question that I've seen some disagreement about. Some people saying this is not a Christian genocide because Muslims, as you said, are also being killed. What is the truth there?
We have a report coming out next month, and the actual numbers will show that the ratio is 5-1. For
Mm.
every Muslim killed, it's 5 Christians that are killed.
Wow.
And what you don't see in Nigeria are mosques being burned and destroyed and Muslim villages completely ransacked and taken over, versus the Christian villages where you have over 10,000 churches that have been destroyed and nearly 800 Christian communities completely wiped off the map.
Wow. And the Nigerian government, what are they doing?
The Nigerian government is complicit in these attacks, and they are spending lots of money and resources to try to keep the status quo because the Fulani have infiltrated the Nigerian government. They've infiltrated the military, the entire security apparatus in Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like I say Nigeria likes to lie to itself, but it likes to have a dog and pony show where they say, let's say an attack happens. No one ever gets arrested.
Mm-hmm.
The Christians that may have tried to acquire some arms to arm themselves will get arrested. And they'll get punished. The people trying to defend their villages end up getting arrested by the military and put in prison, while the
Wow.
perpetrators, the guys actually doing the killing, get away scot-free.
Yeah.
And let's say a terrorist does get arrested. They're let out the next day.
Mm.
And the Nigerian government, when I say they're very complicit, Truth Nigeria and our organization issued over 100 terror alerts since 2024 with 90% accuracy. We knew and had information that attack was going to occur, where it was going to occur. And in every instance, our policy is to notify the Nigerian police and military of what we find out. And in the majority of those cases, the Nigerian military, police, and government ignored our terror alerts and never intervened during these attacks.
How do you get that information?
We created truthnigeria.com. It's a way for us to give an outlet to journalists in Nigeria to actually share what's actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
And we became a trusted source by villages and local community leaders all over the country. And they saw us as a trusted source of information. And so that's how we get it. We have people all over the country saying, hey, we found this out. And then we investigate, to verify, is this really happening? Is this true? And we put the information out there. But like I said, we have a long track record of the Nigerian government knowing where attacks were going to occur and when, and doing nothing.
Mm-hmm. And what do you know about the religious history of Nigeria? Because there are so many Christians there. There are a lot of Muslims. How did that religious makeup happen?
Well, when Islam spread through Northern Africa, it made its way into Nigeria. And most of the early on, the religions in Nigeria was, like traditional religions, witchcraft, or however you want to put it. But then missionaries came in the late 1800s and the early 1900s, bringing the gospel to Nigeria. And Nigeria was once 70% Christian.
Yeah.
And 30% Muslim in the north. But because of all the attacks and the insecurity and everything going on, it's now 50-50.
Mm. And because we've just lost the lives of so many Christians.
We've lost the lives of so many Christians. People were afraid, and then they left Christianity because they didn't want to get killed and submitted to Islam.
Right.
And that's what's happening right now.
Where is this militant arm of radical Islam, the Fulani tribe, getting all of their resources, getting all of their ammunition?
That is a loaded question, Allie.
Okay.
That's a very loaded question, and thank you for asking that. The best way I can say is when the Arab Spring happened under Obama and the whole destabilization of the Middle East, Gaddafi gone, Assad gone, all these dictatorships became destabilized, and you saw this rise of ISIS. Well, funding, weapons, everything started pouring in from the Middle East down to Northern Africa. And that is where some of the funding is coming in. But also on top of this, there are foreign interests that are taking advantage of this insecurity. You have the Chinese that are illegally mining all over the Middle Belt in northern Nigeria that they're benefiting off the insecurity. They're actually, giving money and paying, bribes or whatever you want to call it to mine in these areas where Christian villages once were.
Mm.
And they're paying the terrorists to, just leave them alone, and they do their thing. The terrorists do their thing. So we're seeing Chinese activity going on, but also the other part of the funding is the kidnappings. Kidnapping in Nigeria. I mean, when you think of Nigeria, a lot of people think kidnapping, but no one asks what happens to these people. What happens to these victims? How does this work? Well, this is how they're also financing their war, is through kidnapping. And currently, we estimate there's over 10,000 Christians being held in terror camps, held for ransom as we speak. And the people, if they want to see their relatives live, they sell everything they own, give it to the terrorists, hoping that they get their people back. But then these people are left with nothing, and the terrorists make away with all the money. And this has been a continuous funding source for the local terrorists.
Is it true that an incentive that these militants have to kidnap Christians is because Christians traditionally will pay more for their relatives, or basically the hostage is worth more ransom-wise than a kidnapped Muslim? Why is that?
Christians love life. Christians want to preserve life. If a Muslim gets kidnapped, they hardly ever pay the ransom. So if they know they can kidnap Christians, the Christians will pay.
What is the feeling like? I mean, I can imagine, but among Christians who are there that you're talking to, I mean, you're literally trying to equip the persecuted for this kind of trial. So what are they feeling and telling you?
There's a sense of hopelessness. It's hard to explain. They have been conditioned to have this be the norm. They're conditioned to feel that and believe that, they wake up every day going, thank God I didn't get kidnapped. Thank God I didn't get killed. They're conditioned to think that this is normal.
Mm-hmm.
And, and we're coming in trying to bring hope and tell them, you don't have to live like this. This can be stopped.
Mm.
With the right amount of willpower and the right of international attention, this can be stopped.
Can be stopped by whom?
It can be stopped by the people if they banded together and rose up.
Really?
I believe.
What would that look like?
What would that look like?
Yeah.
Christians uniting. And even the moderate Muslims uniting with them to say enough is enough.
Would that be taking up arms?
Taking up arms. Taking back political control of the government, getting rid of the corruption. And that's where I believe, possibly U.S. intervention could take place. But I'm just being honest.
Mm-hmm.
Because every time I go to Nigeria, I meet with the victims. I meet with survivors that came out of these terror camps. I mean, when somebody's kidnapped, they are repeatedly beaten every day.
Mm-hmm.
They maybe get fed once every 2 or 3 days. They come out looking like Holocaust survivors with massive amounts of disease. And we don't pay ransoms to get people out. But if they find a way to get out, we are there to bring them comfort, bring them aid.
Your organization.
Our organization is there to bring them comfort, bring them aid, and bring them back to health. But we interview them, we get their stories, and we come alongside and pray with them and help them rebuild their lives. But it doesn't have to be this way. It does not have to be this way.
Hmm.
And I'm sorry.
Yeah. What do you think the U.S. government could do?
The U.S. government, I think, can make an offer to the Nigerian government it can't refuse. And at least show the rest of the world, does the Nigerian government want a prosperous Nigeria? Do they want a peaceful Nigeria that can do business with the rest of the world? Or do they love their terrorists more? Do they want the payoff that the terrorists are giving them more than seeing a prosperous Nigeria and being a beacon of Africa for the whole world?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so economically, militarily, I think something can be done. But the question is to the Tinubu administration and to the political apparatus in Nigeria, do you love your terrorists more in the kidnappings and the killings and the money you're benefiting from these things? More than seeing a total transformation of the country where everyone can prosper?
Yeah.
That's my question.
Yeah, the government probably is taking bribes from the bad actors who are benefiting economically from the destabilization and the violence there.
Yes.
And by the way, many Muslim majority countries have a special hatred for Christians and just for religious reasons want to see Christians killed and want to see Christianity abolished. And this is an easy conquest because the people in Nigeria are already so poor and already so weak. So this is an easy win to a lot of those radically Islamic countries over there in the Middle East. And so, yeah, there's a lot. What you're saying is that the offer that the United States government makes the Nigerian government has to outweigh whatever perceived benefits they are getting from these bad actors. Well, let's listen to Donald Trump because he did say something about this on October 31st. Here's Shot 1.
If the Nigerian government continues to allow the killing of Christians, the USA will immediately stop all aid and assistance to Nigeria. We're going to do things to Nigeria that Nigeria is not going to be happy about and may very well go into that now disgraced country, guns are blazing, to completely wipe out the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible, horrible atrocities. I'm hereby instructing our Department of War to prepare for possible action. If we attack, it will be fast, vicious, and sweet, just like the terrorist thugs attack our cherished Christians. These are cherished people. These are great people. Leave them alone. Warning, the Nigerian government better move fast before it's too late. If they don't, there's going to be hell to pay.
Look, I know that you're not a political organization, so I'm just saying in my own capacity, I'm very grateful for that strength in words that we would have never gotten from the Biden administration. That's my opinion, or a Kamala Harris administration. So he's not just talking about economic deals there. He is calling upon his Department of War to potentially respond with aggression.
Yes. And when I saw that, I had tears of joy.
Yeah.
When I saw that, because finally, we've been at this for 6 years, trying to get the government to recognize what is going on. And obviously during the Biden administration, it was like talking to a brick wall. They don't want to hear anything we had to say. And they kept on telling us, no, people are being killed in Nigeria because of climate change.
Oh my gosh.
That was our official State Department directive, that Christians were being killed because of, or people, not Christians, people are being killed because of climate change.
Yeah.
The radical Islamists are moving in because of climate change and killing people. And it's about land and water resources, which is a lie from the pit of hell. So for years, we've been trying to go to the Biden administration and tell people what's going on, and they wouldn't even listen.
Yeah. Well, then they would have to look in the face of the ideology of Islam and admit that it's a problem, which they will not do. All of these groups that seemingly don't have anything in common, LGBTQ, progressives, Muslims, the commonality is a hatred for Christianity.
Right.
And so, they don't want to mess with that worldview that they have. It was
a total joke. I can tell you stories about like USAID in Nigeria and the stuff we saw.
Tell me.
Oh, their operating directive for Nigeria and aid was advancing LGBTQ issues. They had they helped put on like a gay Christmas play.
What?
Yeah, like a gay Christmas play somewhere in Nigeria, and pushing feminism.
I can't imagine that went over well.
They funded it. They did it somewhere.
Yeah.
And then, one of the other things I want to bring up is that we have the killings going on, but what people don't talk about is there's 3.5 million Christians that have been displaced. They're living in camps. They're living in absolute squalor. So a USAID story, you'll find this interesting. We went to this camp where people are essentially living in garbage bag, like makeshift garbage bag mosquito net tents. No floor, dirt floor. They're laying on the dirt. I mean, it is just the most horrendous of conditions. And we started doing a lot of work with this particular camp, bringing in food, medicine, aid, whenever we could. And then we decided we're going to raise enough money to build them structures to live in. And so we went in to check on the work that we've been doing. And I see 4 giant garbage cans in this camp that says USAID on them. Big, giant garbage cans with USAID stickers. I went to the camp head and I said, did USAID bring these? And they said, yes. I said, did they bring you any food? No. They bring you any medicine? They said no. They just came and they brought us 4 garbage cans. I said, are they coming in with a method to take the trash and put it somewhere else? They're like, no, they just showed up and brought us these and took pictures. So
Wow.
this is a camp of over 3,000 people. There's trash everywhere. There's feces everywhere. There's no sewage system. And their USA gift to a camp was 4 garbage cans.
Yeah.
One, it's an insult and a slap in the face. But this is how bad things were.
Yeah. And people were mad at the Trump administration for cutting a lot of the money that we were giving to USAID. But the truth is that so much of USAID was going to that kind of thing.
It's going to that kind of thing. But also, we know for a fact that the food trucks that USAID was sending was ending up in terror camps.
Yeah.
They're ending up with the terrorists.
Right.
So we call it the Nigerian shuffle, where you have trucks and trucks loaded of food in USAID. They break down magically right outside of a terror area. And next day, all the stuff's gone and trucks are back up and running.
Mm-hmm.
I call that the Nigerian shuffle.
Yeah.
Because that is what happened over and over again. This is stuff we saw on the ground. So people living in camps that have nothing but the clothes on their backs from after the attacks are getting no help whatsoever, and all the aid's going to terrorists.
I remember Ron Paul said that foreign aid is money from poor people in rich countries to rich people in poor countries.
Yes.
And that's essentially what is happening. Even if the Fulani aren't rich, they're powerful and they have all of the resources. So all of our compassion over here, our tax dollars going to these federal bureaucratic entities being shipped abroad in the name of empathy, well, really, they're not getting to the people that actually need our help.
And that's what we see constantly. So we have a policy when we render aid in Nigeria, we don't work with the government. We assess, we call ahead of time, we find the people that need it, and we distribute it directly to the people.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't even involve mayors, local government officials, nobody. Because we're going to make sure the aid gets to the people and doesn't get siphoned off by the government. And boy, we've been able to be very effective with very little by just doing that.
Mm-hmm. It's like Ronald Reagan said, like the scariest words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Right. Right.
And that's why Christians have to, so often curtail that because we are not supposed to outsource our compassion to the government because the government so often mishandles that.
Right.
Let's talk more specifically about what attacks are going on. I have read about increased attacks on schools. We've heard the reports of thousands of Christians being slaughtered in their churches, either being kidnapped or being tortured, maimed, beheaded. And sometimes when they are kidnapped, they are forced into conversion. And then you mentioned Sharia, which of course requires, for example, if someone is accused of stealing, their hand is cut off. And so I've seen stories of that, of people's limbs chopped off in the name of, implementing Islam in their lives. Tell us more specifically, what does the violence really look like?
Well, just yesterday, a church was attacked. 3 people were killed. 8 people were abducted. They shot up the place. And just 4 days ago, there was a school where 25 girls were kidnapped.
Wow. Christian
girls, 25 girls kidnapped. And what's going to happen to these girls? There's a high chance that they're not even going to hold them for ransom. They're going to take them and turn them into baby factories.
Yeah.
For the Muslims, which is what happened to most of the Chibok girls that were kidnapped a long time ago. And everybody says, free our girls, free girls in Chibok. Hardly any of them were ever freed.
Tell us more about that, because I was looking in my research about you said Chibok, right?
Yeah.
Tell us more about that attack, because I remember at the time people talking about that, free these girls, never talking about Islam, but just saying, we need to help these people. But what really happened?
Well, several of those girls are still living up north, and they were forced marriages to terrorists, and they've had children. They've turned them into baby factories. Mm-hmm. That's what they do with a lot of these Christian girls.
Basically sex slaves.
Sex slaves. They're sex slaves and turn and just and they rape them and they force them to have children over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And so on the kidnapping side, that's what happens to these girls. And then, other people, like I said, are kidnapped, they're held for ransom, and the families have to sell everything they own just to get them back. And even sometimes after they get the money, they still kill hostages. Now, what's it look like on the ground? Well, think of, you live in a village of 1,000 people. Say you live in a small town of 1,000 people. One night, 200 people come in with guns. They kill as many people as they can, your family members, your daughters, your aunts, uncles, cousins, your mom, your dad. They destroy your home completely to the ground. They've destroyed all your crops. They destroy everything you own. And then the Nigerian government says, oh, sorry, too bad. We're not going to go after the perpetrators. Here's a plot of land 40 kilometers away. Have fun. That's it. Figure it out. With no aid, support, and no justice being done. So there's 3.5 million Christians right now living in these camps that are no longer allowed to return to their homes. If they try to go back home, they get killed.
Wow. Let's play the video that you were telling me about before we got started of the Christians who are being massacred, and you can hear the gunfire. I also saw this video of this woman, and the caption said it was a woman in Nigeria, although, things like that, you just never know. I don't know if you saw this, but, and we'll play it. We could actually put it up even as I'm talking, but it's this mother. I'm sure she's a lot younger than she looked, but she looks so distressed and so traumatized. She's got a baby and she's got a toddler and she's got an older kid behind her. And you can kind of hear these men who with guns kind of yelling at her. And she is just instinctively putting her hands up like this, like she's gone through this many times before. She's trying to bring her babies in. She's trying to protect them. And I saw someone reported that she and her children were slaughtered after that. And, just as a mom myself, I can see so much of that's exactly what I would be doing. I can't imagine how scared she is. I don't know if that was from Nigeria and if you even saw that video, but go ahead. Yeah,
that was from Sudan.
Okay.
That particular video you're referring to is from Sudan, but it is very indicative and very common of what we see in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Like this happens.
Same thing.
All the time, every single day. Every single day. And I'd like to segue into this is that the reason Americans and mainstream media doesn't know what's going on in Nigeria and there's like there's all this mixed information that's coming out is because the news in Nigeria, when it gets to the mainstream media, is always filtered through Al Jazeera. So somebody from the Nigerian government writes their narrative, their official story. Then it goes to Al Jazeera, filtered through Al Jazeera, and then that goes to the AP. And that is the mainstream article that goes out. So,
and the AP doesn't necessarily fact check it.
They never fact check anything. They just copy what Al Jazeera did and then put it out to the mainstream media. So I'd like to go to an instance that happened in June. It was called the Father's Day Massacre, where 280 Christians were half of them were burned alive. The other half were macheted to death and shot because they were trying to escape being burned alive. The mainstream media said it was 100 people killed. That didn't say Christians. The actual number was 280. The official article said it was unknown gunmen or bandits. They never talk about who's doing the killing. So you say 100 people were killed, but it never says who, what, where, and how. And that information is always void of the articles. So by the time it gets to the mainstream press, they lie about how many people were killed, and they definitely leave out who did it.
Because Al Jazeera, for people who don't know, is a Middle Eastern, mostly Muslim publication.
It's the Muslim publication, but it's a trusted news source to the world.
Yeah.
So when the article comes out of Al Jazeera, then CNN, USA Today, all the other outlets will pick up that article and say, that's what happened. No one does any investigative journalism. Nobody asks any questions.
So it's up to organizations like yours to get the truth out.
So that's why we created Truth Nigeria, because I kept on seeing this over and over again. And I was going, if they keep lying about the numbers and who did it, that's why nobody really knows what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's so Truth Nigeria, and giving an outlet to journalists in Nigeria to actually document and share what's actually happening.
Yeah.
But that's why people keep asking me, why does nobody know about this? Well, because you're getting false information.
Yeah. And the people there don't have, all the access to iPhones and internet that we do. If this were happening where we live, easily people would be, but it actually, even here with all the access to technology that we have, things get muddied by the time they're dispersed to the general public. So if that's true of us here, how much more true is that of someone who lives in a third world country?
Yeah. And the other thing is, our journalists risk their lives every day. Like, not only with the terrorists, but the Nigerian government. Our guys have been arrested. They've been beat up. They've gone through hell, but to tell the truth, but they still believe that the truth needs to get out at the risk of their own lives.
Tucker Carlson, obviously one of the most powerful people in media here, he had a guest on, what was his name?
Robert Amsterdam.
Robert Amsterdam. I've never heard of him before, but they were talking about this genocide that's going on. And this guy, Robert, basically said it's not really just a Christian genocide. We'll play that.
There have always been tribal conflict. I spoke to the foreign minister before I came here because I wanted to get clarity on the government's position. Absolutely, let's be clear, President Tinubu's wife is a Christian pastor. This is not targeted at Christians. There are probably an equal or more number of Muslim deaths.
So what is your take on that?
Robert Amsterdam.
I don't know anything about him.
Well, Robert Amsterdam is a mercenary lawyer for hire. And he don't get out of bed for less than $500,000 to go jump on a cause and do something. He is a mercenary for hire. Now, the big problem with Robert Amsterdam and claiming that there is no genocide against Christians in Nigeria is really funny to me, also horrific, because this guy in particular lawyered up and helped a guy by the name of El Rufai from Nigeria, who is a Nigerian politician, Muslim, but also a guy that has helped orchestrate attacks against Christians under his political leadership. So this guy, Robert Amsterdam, shows up on Tucker Carlson's thing, says, oh, there's no Christian persecution in Nigeria. And he also says that, I'm friends with this such and such political family, blah, 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 blah. People like Robert Amsterdam and other U.S. lobbyists and diplomats that are pulling the Nigerian government narrative, they don't go to real Nigeria. They go to the fanciest of hotels, they smoke the cigars, drink the alcohol, but they never actually set foot in real Nigeria and see what's actually happening. They're just mercenaries for hire like Robert Amsterdam.
So the motivation to misrepresent something like that, you're saying is just money?
It's money. It's money. He's been paid by very bad actors in Nigeria to lay cover for them.
I'm sure there are a lot of people like that.
There are. And right now, even as Trump is speaking out of what's happening in Nigeria, there are political forces within our U.S. government that are being paid by the Nigerian government to lobby to keep the status quo. And this is a big fight that we are fighting against right now. And we are praying that truth and justice reigns over these corrupt lobbyists.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember this video circulating, I believe this was from Nigeria, of the pastor, and he was basically standing in an open grave after one of these massacres, just kind of begging for help and attention, specifically from Trump. We'll play that.
Look at it here on ground. Special advisor to Trump. Now, please tell Trump to save our life in Nigeria. He has been building to settle peace between Israel and also Hamas. Now, his attention, I'm calling attention to Nigeria. They are killing Christians in Nigeria. Massacre Christians. If they say they kill Muslims, Muslims are being killed. By who? By Muslims.
I'm guessing this is the sentiment of a lot of pastors. I sense his desperation, but gosh, the courage too, the incredible courage that it takes to stand up and ask for something and to say, I'm a Christian and we need help.
So I know that pastor. I know he's a friend and we support that pastor. His name's Pastor Ezekiel DeComo.
Wow.
Pastor Ezekiel is one of the bravest pastors I've ever met on the face of this earth. This guy goes right to where the attacks are. He is praying with people and trying to be a spiritual light in the darkness. And we support Pastor Ezekiel and try to help him out however we can. And this is indicative. And if we had 1,000 Pastor Ezekiels in Nigeria, Nigeria would change overnight.
Yeah.
And this man is brave.
Same thing with America. If we had Pastor Ezekiels in America.
If we had 1,000 Pastor Ezekiels in America, this place would change overnight.
Yes.
And just for those watching this, I would like to encourage you, please keep Pastor Ezekiel in your prayers.
Yes.
I talk to him every week. Sometimes he's afraid for his life and he's moving into a safe house because he knows people are tailing him. Pray for this man, please.
Yeah. There is a weird shift happening in America when it comes to Islam. It seems like more people on the conservative side are softer towards Islam as an ideology. And also, it's not even just a left versus right, progressive versus conservative thing anymore. There's almost a blindness or a moral relativism when it comes to the danger of the ideology as a whole. And I've noticed that a lot of people don't want to talk about Nigeria or Sudan or these other places where Christians are being persecuted because of the Muslim thing. I don't know. They don't want to be seen as Islamophobic or whatever it is. That to me is just such a lack of courage.
It's a lack of courage and it is stupidity. It's just not lack of courage. It's stupidity. To acknowledge how Islam has conquered every nation it's touched since 640 AD.
Yeah.
It hasn't been by voluntary conversion.
Right.
It has been done by the sword.
Yeah.
And what is playing out in Nigeria right now could be what would play out in America 30 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have a whole goal. They don't have a goal of assimilating. It is not in their religion to assimilate to a culture in an area that you move into. You are commanded to dominate that culture and make everybody submit to you.
Yep.
That is the fundamentals of Islam and how it operates. So for people to say, "Oh, there's a mosque going up in my backyard. Let's celebrate it." No. That is a sign of them conquering your territory. That is how they view it. And they can lie to you to advance Islam. They can manipulate the laws around you to advance Islam. They will take anything they can to advance their cause and eventually put you in submission. And it's in the Quran. If they have a minority population, they have to be nice, play nice, and be quiet. But once they reach that threshold is when the political threshold is when the violence occurs.
Yes, you're exactly right.
I get the same story from survivors in Nigeria. Okay, they just can't believe it happened to them. But they tell me the same story. You know what they say? They say, the Fulani moved in. Our kids played together. We did business together. We did commerce. Everything was fine until the one day.
Wow.
Where even their neighbors partook in the attacks.
Yeah.
And then stole their property and took everything they had.
Yeah.
And they Fulani have a saying in Nigeria, is they say, treat the Christian like a pet chicken. You raise the chicken, you feed the chicken, you pet the chicken, love the chicken until it's time to chop off its head. This is actually a Fulani saying, an analogy
Yeah.
for Christians.
Yeah. Just very frightening. I think some people that they will just kind of dismiss it because they won't think of it as a religious or ideological thing going on. They'll think of it as just an African thing. Well, this is a war-torn tribal country anyway. But then when we look at Europe, we were just talking on Monday about the 10-year anniversary of the Bataclan attack, which was in Paris, France, when hundreds of people were in Paris. They were disemboweled, they were raped, their eyes were gouged out by these Northern African Muslims who had entered through legal migration mostly, but they had been accepted by people who were compassionate, who thought, well, I've got a Muslim neighbor and he's nice, which I'm sure is true. But as you said, Medina versus Mecca, this is part of their ideology that as soon as they hit a particular threshold of a majority, that's when they take power and they kind of forge a conquest.
Yeah, full dominance. Sharia, full dominance. And and we're seeing pockets that's happening in Dearborn. We're seeing it. You guys better be watching out, in Dallas. You're seeing it in Minneapolis.
Houston. Yeah.
All over. Little pockets of this happening.
Yeah.
And it's only a matter of time unless something is done.
Right.
To do this. And it's not Islamophobia. When you read history, look at why would you expect anything different?
Yeah.
For over 1,500 years, why would you expect anything different?
Right. Yeah. A phobia is an unjust or paranoid fear.
Right.
And this is a very reasonable concern.
Legitimate concern,
Yes.
legitimate fear.
Yes. And it's out of love for our neighbors and innocent people that we push back against this darkness. Well, there's two things I want to talk about that I hope builds up our faith for those of us here in America. And one, I just want to hear maybe if you have a story or just general description of the faith of the Christians in Nigeria. When you think back to someone that you've interacted with there, that you're like, wow, that is Holy Spirit empowered faith and joy in the midst of this tribulation. Can you talk to us about that?
One particular story is part of our ministry. We have a widow support ministry. We support over 320 widows monthly. And one of these ladies, her husband was a pastor that was murdered, chopped up into pieces, and dropped in front of her door. And she was sharing with me her story. And I was starting to cry. I mean, I was crying because I heard the story. And she grabbed me and she said, "There's no reason for you to be sad because I have forgiven the attackers." She goes, and she's witnessing to me. She said, we look to the Lord.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
We look to the Lord and put our trust in Jesus. That shook me.
Yeah.
That shook me.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the resilience that the Christians have in Nigeria.
I can imagine.
They know all this tragedy is going on around them. But even at the threat of their church being attacked, they come in wearing their Sunday best, walking long distances to make it to church, and they give it all. They give it their all. They give their praise to Jesus.
Yeah.
And that is what shook my faith.
Yeah.
Shook my faith to my core.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the resilience that these Nigerian Christians have.
I just thought of another clip that I saw, and it's of a congregation in Nigeria in their Sunday best worshiping together, and it's beautiful. Yeah. We'll play that. And tell me about conversions to Christianity.
Yeah.
Is that something that's happening? I mean,
Yes.
against all odds, there are Muslims coming to Christ in Nigeria.
So we are at equipping the persecuted. We're a gospel mission. We're a gospel-centered mission, and we do support and encourage underground missionaries to go up north. And I just got a report the other day from our coordinator that over 600 Muslims have come to know Christ in the last 3 months.
3 months?
3 months.
600 Muslims in 3 months.
Through our ministry.
Wow.
600 Muslims have come to know Christ.
Wow.
And what we do is if they come to know Christ, we have a system where we create safe houses that they go into where they get discipled for 2 months. And then they make the choice. Do they move away from their families for the South? Because once they accept Christ, I mean, there's a death sentence. Their family will come after them and kill them if they find out if they've converted to Christ. So we have a system where they go into safe houses, they get discipled, and then they choose. They move south, they go into an area, kind of blend in, or do they make the choice to go up and be missionaries? And if they make the choice to go back up into the north to be missionaries, we support their work. And it's bearing fruit.
Yeah, I can imagine. Do you see this as kind of like a growing trend that, God is up to something, that he is changing the numbers through conversion?
Yes. We're seeing conversion happen. And a lot of the moderate Muslims that hate seeing the killings and the massacres going on, they're starting to wake up and say, do I really want to be part of this? And at the risk of their own life, some of them are coming in and converting to Christ and becoming Christians.
That's incredible. Praise God.
We're unapologetically Christian organization, and we unapologetically proselytize.
Yeah.
And it's only the work of God that's doing this.
Mm-hmm. What advice would you give people to Christians here who want to share the gospel with their Muslim neighbor? Different dynamic, but just as urgent.
Gospel 101. Gospel 101. Be the hands and feet of Jesus. And just speak to them. Speak to them the truth. You don't have to be rude about it. You don't have to be a jerk about it. But speak truth and love and share the gospel with them. Establish that relationship.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to do it. This is Gospel 101. What Jesus do? Spread the gospel. Go preach. They'll either accept or reject it, but it's our job to share the gospel with everybody.
Tell me what Christians listening to this, what are the top things, if you could say 2 things to pray and then to do? What should they pray? What should they do to help our brothers and sisters in Nigeria?
Add the plight of the persecuted Christians in Nigeria to your prayer list.
Yeah.
Just add it to your prayer list every day.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about it with your pastors. Talk about it with your Bible studies, your small groups. Let people know what's going on. And then if you want to take action and help persecuted Christians on the ground, go to equippingthepersecuted.org and partner with our organization. We're an organization that actually helps persecuted Christians on the ground. We don't just talk about it, raise awareness. We are there on the ground every day, helping our persecuted brothers and sisters any way we can. Wow. And so I'd encourage listeners, go to equippingthepersecuted.org and partner with us.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, pray.
Yes, the prayer of a righteous person has great power as it is working. And that's something that we are called to do, to care for and think of and consider the plight of our brothers and sisters in Christ around the world. So thank you so much for what you're doing and how you are a vessel of God's grace and protection. And I'm thankful for that. And I hope that we can all partner together in helping our family in Christ that's abroad. And of course, this is happening not only in Nigeria, it's happening in a lot of different places. And all of us are called to different acts of generosity and different acts of service. You're called to Nigeria. Someone else might be called to China. Someone else might be called to Yemen. And we don't have to worry about being everything for everyone. But what is God asking you to do in this moment to obey? So thank you so much. And I do hope people will check out your organization. We'll link it in our description. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on.